result of other people's negligence for over 50 years here in South Florida. If you get injured as a result of somebody else's negligence, it can be a car accident, it can be a slip and fall, medical malpractice, negligent security. If somebody else's negligence caused an injury to either you or one of your loved ones, give us a call. Our phone number is on our page, our website is on our page, and our email addresses are on our page. Please give us a call for a free consultation. We'd love to help you. Let Zach and I protect your rights.
Hello, everybody.
FOF Live. Thanks again for joining us. The final 4 regular season streams for Fish on First Live this season, just like the first 48 presented by Berger and Hicks. If you've been injured as a result of somebody else's negligence, go ahead and give them a call, contact them online. They're easily available, and they've been very supportive of the show we've done all season long. Eli Sussman here. Got double guests joining me for the start of this one. Sean Millerick, Gianmarco Rinaldi, both of you guys, thank you for hopping on as the Marlins host the Dodgers as they begin the final regular season homestands that this team has had. Mercifully, we've reached the end. We've almost reached the end down the stretch right here of this cursed season. But it's been an interesting one. It's been a record-setting one in certain ways, and it's been an ever-changing one. Really quickly, let's just dip into the previous series, the Marlins versus the Nationals, a 4-game set. Marlins lose 3 out of 4. They win the opener, but then lose the final 3 right here. This is the worst season series that the Marlins have ever had against the Nats. They lost 11 out of 13 overall this year between the two. A lot of close games here at the end, but most of them, as you see, going in favor of the Nats right here. I want to hear from you first, Gianmarco. Just considering the Nats last year were the last place team in this division, and now this year, with this series, they just clinched a better record than the Marlins. They did it with a lineup that is stacked with young former top prospects and a rotation that actually has a lot of young guys that are going to be around for years and years. How scared should the Marlins be that they've been passed not only by the Nats this year, but this is a team that could be a serious threat to them for years and years to come?
Considering that the Nationals pretty much, they also gave up the first game. They could have swept. They gave up the first game, and thankfully for the Marlins, Jesus Tinoco has been lights out. So I think he went 2 innings scoreless on Friday. If I'm not on Thursday, if I'm not mistaken, I think he went 2 scoreless with the save.
Yeah.
So, but definitely, I would be scared 100%, and I think this should go for every team in the division as well. When the Nationals are able to start putting out lineups consistently of a much improved CJ Abrams, next year's going to be opening day lineup. They're going to have Abrams. They're going to have Cruz. They're going to have Wood. They're going to have Kybert. They have a bunch of guys. Mackenzie Gore has had a rocky season, but he has the stuff and could potentially be an ace. They got hurt earlier by Josiah Gray. I think he underwent Tommy John earlier this season. But they're definitely a team that should compete for the next couple of years, at least at the minimum.
And Sean, you do a good job of keeping tabs on players all across the league for fantasy purposes. Who in particular on this Nats team are you most excited and fearful of moving forward on an individual level?
I think it's probably got to be Wood. He really came on in the second half of the year. It's definitely, you mentioned it with fantasy, had both Wood and Cruz added, to my benches this season. But Wood's the one who really, kind of fired up, and I could see him being very high round pick, and with a full season, that's a lot of offensive talent they've got. Thankfully, the only silver lining competing against the Nats is that I'm not really convinced they're there on the pitching just yet. I mean, we can't hit Mackenzie Gore, but that's aside from that, they've got a ways to catch up with that. So maybe that makes us about even with the Marlins with the rotation they could theoretically put out there if they choose to put all the starting pitchers they can in 2025 against them to quiet that Nationals offense. But James Wood and Dylan Cruz also looks like a beast. I think I'd worry about both of them more than Abrams. I think Abrams is going to be is what he is, talented but streaky on there. But Cruz and Wood in particular are the ones I could see really becoming a unfortunate superstar for the Marlins.
I bring up the Joey Gallo comment right here. He's not a part of their future, but I bring it up because I was watching the game that Belloso pitched. I guess this was the Saturday game that Belloso started, whatever it was. Like Gallo was hitless in like his last week or so coming into the game. He's been terrible of late. He's been one of their, a few disappointing guys on their team. But Belloso, with how home run prone he is, and with Gallo being all he does is hit home runs when he gets hits, there was like nothing more predictable in my mind. So I was never so sure of somebody hitting a home run in a particular matchup than I was about Gallo taking Belloso deep right here. As really none of the starters did that badly. Like Aller gutted through 5 innings. Belloso actually pitched into the 6th inning. I want to get your vibe checks on Edward Cabrera at this point. Eddie, very first inning, he gets himself into self-inflicted issues right there. He allows 2 unearned runs because he dropped the ball covering first base. And then after that, absolutely shoved. He made it through 6 innings. He allowed just 1 hit, which came in that first inning. It was an infield hit, if I remember correctly. This is now a pretty extended stretch of Cabrera being great after a previous stretch where he was either awful or missing time due to injury, and usually a combination of both. He's had this, he to me, entering the second half of the season was like the guy to watch, the guy who had the most on the line because he had this wide open opportunity to make starts every 5th day. And after some inconsistencies now, it's been a pretty good stretch right there. So John Marco, how has he changed your view on him at all over the course of this season, or just in particular over the last few weeks, in terms of whether he's part of this team in the future, whether he's a real starter moving forward? I know he's a really complicated guy to get a grip on because of how up and down he is.
I wish I could honestly say that I think Cabrera has a spot in a future rotation, but considering he's gone into camp, I think 2 out of the last 3 years or 3 years in a row with a bicep injury or some type of inflammation, and he hasn't been ready for the start of the season, and his inconsistency still, and he's been on fire. But overall, this season was a down season. I'm glad he's ending it good, but it was a down year after a down year last year and a down year the year before. He got called up in 2021, and he's yet to consistently show over a multi-month basis of consistency and being able to get his walks down and being able to be healthy.
Same thing to you, Sean. Where are you at with your Eddie confidence level and excitement level?
I guess for the sake of devil's advocate, I'll go a little bit the other way. But I think I could say that my opinion really hasn't changed. And it's that I've had him for about 1.5 years as, maybe in some ways he's just the ideal number 5 option in a rotation, that he's capable of doing this in stretches. He's also is, at best, probably a number 5 starter because of how often he can get himself into trouble. No one could beat Edward Cabrera like Edward Cabrera, himself, whether it's self-inflicted errors, a walk implosion in an inning, but he could also do this. And sure, if they could actually get real value for him, but I think a lot of teams aren't going to buy it. And so therefore, if the Marlins could just get him to take a salary that he is worth and just kind of have that arm, locked up as a guy who could go out there, every 5th day or, long man out of the pen, there's value in it for a team, like the Marlins, who are financially limited in what they can do. And for him to, flash his upside, I think that would be the best case argument you can make for trying to hold on to Cabrera, as if you could, extend him, for a little bit. Ideally, when everyone's healthy, maybe he is forced out and he is a bullpen type guy. But the fact that he has this talent, it's always intriguing, and that's the trick with him. You never would want to overpay for it because, that's the trap. But if you can avoid doing that, as long as they can keep avoiding doing that, then he's interesting.
Yeah. I would live with the performance headache and the roller coaster of going up and down that he brings people through. It's just the wrinkle is the injury stuff. The fact that every single year, and it's not an exaggeration, every single year, we're at like 5 or 6 straight years now where he's missed some time due to some injury. And Gianmarco mentioned sometimes it's the bicep, it's been the shoulder at other points. Sometimes he had a blister issue on and off for a few years that actually has not come up this year, but he's always, that's what separates him from being the typical number 5 starter, is that he's not even available. He's never available for the whole season, and it's always a significant chunk that he's missing. And if he's dealing with that issue in his early 20s and his mid 20s, is it really going to get that much better as he heads into his later 20s? Probably not. It ultimately does depend on what you could get for him versus what you have with him. And so, yeah, I think the offers and the interest level that other teams may have, depending on how strong that is, then that's somebody you move off of. But if it's not there, then it's better than nothing. And the upside is tantalizing. And I do have to admit, this stretch that he's on lately, in terms of controlling, just control, in terms of just not walking or hitting as many batters as he's accustomed to doing, the strikeouts have gone in and out. The how deep he works into his outings has also been erratic, but ultimately what was holding him back most of all is his inability to throw strikes, and he is throwing strikes at a slightly higher level than we've seen lately. I do want to pivot to some good news on the rotation front that we got today. We had a Sandy Alcantara sighting. For people that are unaware, he has been with the team throughout the entire year. He's been, if you are obsessively following this stuff, you probably have noticed that he's been throwing bullpen sessions every few days for a month and a half at this point, maybe 2 months. And after throwing more than a dozen bullpen sessions, he finally did live batting practice today for the first time. He faced live batters for the first time in nearly an entire year. In fact, a little over an entire year. We just passed the anniversary of when he had that rehab start, trying to come back at the end of last year. It didn't work out. Underwent Tommy John in October. So about a year removed from undergoing surgery, finally faces his own players, his own teammates. He faced 4 different guys. I'll share a little clip of this from his media availability after doing live BP today. So take a listen.
I've been getting tired, just throwing bullpen. So I think today was a big step for me, be out there. So like I said, like 1 inning, 20 pitches, live BP. So everything feels good.
What were you focusing on? Was it how the pitches felt, mixing up your pitches? What was the biggest focus of throwing live BP?
See how I felt, see how I felt when I throw my fastball. So everything feels good, I think I just gotta waiting to make another step.
How close do you feel, and how hard is it to, follow a plan and not rush back?
It's hard. So it's hard because you gotta be set out for 14 months, but you gotta be positive. So today, I got the opportunity to be out there, throw 1 inning. Everything feels good, and let's see how I want to feel tomorrow.
And to have all your teammates there at the top of the dugout watching, dapping you up, giving you a hug afterwards, how great was that?
That was great, so I don't pay too much attention, because when I got opportunity to take them out, I just get so much focus, and that I can't see no one over there. So I think it was great for them.
Yeah, so there's a taste. We have our full video. It's up on our YouTube channel and on our website. It's about 4 minutes of Sandy breaking down what happened, reiterating that he expects to be ready for opening day, because as you can see, he might be ready to pitch if the season was a couple of weeks longer, to be honest with you. Yeah, Gianmarco, just I guess, what do we I don't even know what to say. Just talk about Sandy and how much it's good to see good to see him facing live batters today and topping at 99 miles per hour. We've not seen much of him. I mean, he's been such a gaping hole in this team just to not have him a part of the pitching staff in any way, but it seems to be brighter days ahead, and he has pretty high expectations for 2025.
I think Mish put it best. I'm not mistaken. He was, I think he was replying to someone talking about trading Sandy, and the way that he put it was, you cannot let go of a guy who has been a placeholder every single 5 days. And without him this season, you clearly see you do not have anyone in that rotation that has pitched this season that can stop a losing streak and can win a game for you. Sandy has been able to countlessly do that since he struggled with his command early on, but since about 2020 during the COVID, after he had gotten COVID, he had sort of taken this lead. And since the full season in 21, he has been the vocal leader of the Marlins pitching staff. He's been their rock. He's been their ace. He's been their placeholder. He has helped everything. So you clearly notice a season without Sandy, how bad it goes and how south it could turn without having a guy like him in it.
Sean, you're pretty good with trivia. Can you tell me off the top of your head who the Marlins leader in innings pitched is this season? In fact, I think you know this because this has been you've been following this narrative. But tell everybody who leads the Marlins in innings pitched this season without Sandy involved.
That would be former Baltimore Orioles starting pitcher Trevor Rogers, leading the team.
Look at that.
And I don't think he's in too much danger of losing that title. But
Edward technically, mathematically has a chance. 2 more scheduled starts likely for Edward before the end of the year that maybe he could make up that gap. Probably not. If not him, Rodri Munoz, I think that says it all. Rodri Munoz is number 3 on this team in innings pitched. Even the leash, we started this year without any big league experience. Never really felt like a solid rotation option, and then eventually just got demoted, even for a team that's desperate for arms for innings. And that brings us to right behind him is Ryan Weathers. So we should mention that as well because that's relevant to this upcoming series. Ryan Weathers, who has been gone for most of the season, not due to your typical shoulder scare or elbow issue, but a finger strain on his pitching hand. Kept him out for the better part of 3.5 months at this point. And now Ryan Weathers finally on Wednesday, the middle game of the series, making his return to the organization right here. Acquired by the Marlins at last year's trade deadline, came into camp this year without super high expectations, but impressed very early on. And there was a point during that first half of the season where he was making a legitimate all-star case for himself before getting disrupted by this really weird injury. John Marco, could you just refresh people's memory about what we saw from Weathers when he was healthy at the start of the season before going down? And now, at this point, you would have to say the ace of this down the stretch rotation, then he's a guy that certainly has the upside to be really interesting rotation piece moving forward.
He definitely, if I'm not it was the game against the Yankees in spring training where he really opened his eyes. His velo was up consistently to 98, 99. During the middle of the season, I have it pulled up right here. He went a stretch from his first start against Pittsburgh till his start against Arizona on the 26th, where he had allowed 3 runs or less in every single one of his starts except one of them. And there was also that stretch in May where he had that 3-game stretch where he allowed 1 run and had thrown 3 straight quality starts, including 8 innings in Detroit that the Marlins had won in extra innings.
Yeah, let me pull up the game logs for people to look at right here. It's a 3.5 ERA when he's been available this season. A couple double-digit strikeout games right there. And it was right in the middle of that June 7th outing that he hurt his finger. And really just bizarre injury where he couldn't throw. He couldn't begin a throwing program for a month and a half after hurting his finger just because of where it was on his index finger. Really frustrating and bizarre. Gives him a chance to make 3 starts or so down the stretch right here. This would bring in Kevin Burrell from the ballpark at Lone Depot Park for the series opener of this series as well. He's had Ryan Weathers on his mind last night since we got a hunch that Weathers was coming back from the IL. Around the ballpark today, and just refresh people as well in terms of what he brings to the table in this rotation for this year and beyond.
Yeah, they haven't officially activated him. I think that'll happen tomorrow, obviously, since he's slated to start. We saw him around the clubhouse today. Yeah, I mean, they really needed him. They need him. He was on a heater right before actually he landed on the IL. Yet, not the start that he got hurt. The one before, I think he was a career high 11 strikeouts, which was, I think it was this start actually, right here in the picture against the Rangers. Yeah, I mean, he was really, really good this season. I mean, all career highs or career bests in this case. And yeah, I mean, he's big. I mean, the biggest thing was, better fastball command. I mean, he was hitting upper 90s. And on top of that, the secondary stuff is just really, really good. I mean, the sweeper, I think I noted this in the article. I think it was a 53.3% whip percentage, which is really, really good. And then obviously you have I think it's the slider or the changeup. I'm sorry, that was really, really good as well. So he was, definitely coming to Miami has definitely helped him out a lot. He got himself in a good position. Now he's going to make hopefully 3 more starts, which will be obviously tomorrow. Then you have I think it's Minnesota and then Toronto, which would be game 162. So we're excited to see him back. And, unfortunately, at this point, those starts don't mean much except just maybe building back up. And we'll know more or less what the restrictions are, what limits he's on, or some stuff like that.
We touched on before he came on Sandy and the live batting practice he threw today. Who were the victims that had to face him today during that tune-up?
Yeah, so it was David Hensley, Javier Sanoja, Jose Devers. Yeah, it was on 3. Sandy looked good. He was hitting, Skip told us he was hitting 99 on almost every fastball he threw, which is super encouraging. He threw everything but his curveball, and that's just going to happen. It's something that he'll incorporate at some point, I'm assuming. But Javier Sanoja put up a pretty good fight. So did David Hensley. Those were the 2 longest at-bats, if you want to say. Obviously, you don't really look for a result. You just look for how Sandy feels. And he was talking about how good his command was. He felt like it was really good. He got a lot of swings, didn't get many misses, which was a little bit weird. I mean, at the end in the Sanoja at bat, he did get a foul tip with. But aside from that, I mean, Sanoja, we spoke to him after. He was talking about how good the sinker specifically was. So, yeah, I mean, Sandy, he seemed pretty good to go. Obviously, they're not going to make him go into a rehab start, but I would assume that he will just do one more of these live at-bats and or live BP sessions. And then he did say it will be a normal off-season for him. He's going to prepare as if he's going to be playing on opening day or pitching, like if he's going to pitch 200 innings again in 2025. So, yeah, it was definitely a cool sight to see. A lot of people were at here to watch that. Gabe Kapler was there. Skip, obviously, Mel. A lot of the players, almost the whole entire 26-man roster was out there to go watch him. So it was definitely a cool moment. Definitely, in a season that, honestly, there's not really much more to really look out for except individual development instead of wins and losses.
Okay. We only have 35 minutes left of the show. So as quickly as possible, try to take us through this mountain of injury updates. In addition, aside from the Sandy news and the Ryan Weathers news, what else out here should we be focused on?
Well, Braxton making another rehab start. Maybe his last one. Doesn't seem like it will be. Maybe one more is what we were told. So he's back. So is Dane Myers, Vidal Brujan, Derek Hill, all playing in Jacksonville. It looks like Myers and Hill will be taking a little bit longer to come back from what Skip told us. He doesn't think it he said maybe a day or 2 more for Brujan before he comes back. So maybe he's back for the Braves series, which is my estimation. I would assume Myers and Hill could be back for maybe Minnesota, worst case Toronto. But there's going to be a lot of roster moves. So, I mean, just with them. And obviously, I would assume Faucher's done for the season. I really don't think he's coming back. Max Meyer, the one thing I didn't add for Meyer in there is that he's going to be evaluated for a throwing program. And as we saw, Yuri was evaluated for a throwing program today. So definitely we'll see what happens there. We'll probably get hopefully some good news in the next injury report, which would be on Friday against Atlanta. Maybe Yuri is finally throwing some bullpens or whatever. Not even bullpens, just like you're finally seeing him throw, from 60 feet, whatever it is. So pretty overall, honestly, it was a very encouraging injury report.
Well, Sean is privately wondering what I think a lot of us are wondering as well, as to whether the AAA team as currently constructed could beat the Major League Marlins when you have Derek Hill and Brujan, Dane in there, Braxton on the mounds versus tonight.
De Los Santos.
Darren, and the prospects that are still there, and De Los Santos, Agustin Ramirez.
Jared Serna's now up there.
Jared Serna compared to what the Marlins are putting out today. We'll get to the lineup later in the show. It'll be interesting. It'd be probably more competitive between those teams than it would be between the actual Marlins and the Dodgers tonight. But that's why they play the games for us to find out. So we would be remiss to not get your we'd be remiss not to get your thoughts and observations about Ohtani. It is not only the first game of Ohtani's visit with the Dodgers, but it is also conveniently timed Japanese Heritage Night. So is there a big Japanese presence there from fans and media? What about on the media side? How many Japanese media have you noticed here?
I don't know if you could see it, but there's a pretty big contingent over here. And you don't usually see that. You can see Noah there. A lot of people here. Look at that, third row.
Yeah.
And then obviously in the stands, there's going to be a pretty good amount of fans. And today, honestly, it was very, very packed down there. So, yeah, Shohei Ohtani's definitely chasing history, as we all know. 3 away from the home runs and 2 away from the stolen bases. He has a good shot at it tonight, facing Darren McCacken. I believe he's leading off. At least get 1 or 2 of those home runs, and he could make history again at Lone Depot Park, won the World Baseball Classic here. He could hopefully go 50-50 here. And, we're talking to the guys today, and it was definitely mixed emotions. Like, you obviously want to see Shohei complete it, but you don't want to do it. You don't want that to happen here in Miami. So, they're looking at it different ways. Obviously, Skip was, jokingly enough saying that his son Brody is rooting for Shohei today instead of his dad's team. So it'll be interesting. Obviously, I'm very pumped to see Shohei. I got to watch him last year pitch and hit. Unfortunately, not pitching this year, but I think we're seeing something pretty cool and honestly pretty historic.
For people that are wondering, there's still 2 more Heritage Days this week after this one. There's a Miccosukee Day on Friday, and then I don't think anybody would have guessed this. The final Heritage celebration of the season is Canadian Heritage Day. Are there any Canadians on the current Marlins as constructed? They had Charles LeBlanc last year, but as I don't know what sort of crowd that's going to bring in. They usually do. They find a way to bring in a lot of people with these Heritage promotions. That is the end of the 2024 Heritage Series for people wondering. We'll keep Kevin on here for a couple more minutes as we go into our break. And first, our flipped fish. We pick a player who's been part of their major league career with both the Marlins and their opposing team during their careers. This one, I don't know how to rate the difficulty here because it is an accomplished player, but it's one that played a long time ago, played with the Marlins before Kevin was born, probably before John Marco was born. I gave it a 5.5 out of 10 right here for this Jamaican center fielder. 47 career WAR, 200 plus home runs, way over 300 stolen bases, about a league average hitter overall, but had a long career, as you can see, from 1985 to 2001. So yeah, think it over during our break. We'll come back with a reveal and we'll get to the rest of the show here on FOF Live. Stick with us.
We have been representing people injured as a result of other people's negligence for over 50 years here in South Florida. If you get injured as a result of somebody else's negligence, it can be a car accident, it can be a slip and fall, medical malpractice, negligent security. If somebody else's negligence caused an injury to either you or one of your loved ones, give us a call. Our phone number is on our page, our website is on our page, and our email addresses are on our page. Please give us a call for a free consultation. We'd love to help you. Let Zach and I protect your rights.
Thank you to MJS for reminding me that Otto, he has Canadian citizenship, I'm fairly sure, from when during his youth, he relocated from the DR to Canada. I know he speaks French and that he did spend part of his childhood there. Not sure if he's actually a citizen, but probably is. That's a good reminder. Remember that story. And Kevin, you do know this one, and I'm being reminded why you probably know this one. Didn't I give you an assignment, or you took your own assignment to research this guy's career back in the Fish Stripe days?
I did. This is Devon White. This was one of the first guys I researched maybe after Benito Santiago. It was a little off-season thing I was doing, and yes, the 98 OPS plus gave it away, and so did center field. He was a very good defender. during his time. That's why he has as much WAR as he does. He was pretty good for the Marlins in '97. So, yes, nice pickup here. I did not know he was a Dodger, but Jamaica gave it away as well.
Yeah, played for the Dodgers after he played for the Marlins. He's better known for his time with the Blue Jays earlier in his career, as well as a couple other teams, more so than. But yeah, he was World Series champ with the Marlins as well. Yeah, with his Angels tenure as well. I spent more time with the Angels than any other team. With the Dodgers from 99 to 2000 back then. But yeah, several people in the comments got that one as well. Let's see. So anything else, Kevin, that we should want to run by us before we get underway?
Bobby Miller has never faced the Marlins. Nobody in the Marlins active roster has never faced Bobby Miller. Should be interesting. Bobby Miller has had his ups and downs this season. Maybe this is a get-right start for him. We'll see. Definitely going to be 3 interesting games. I would say that the Marlins, for the most part, have played the Dodgers well here in Miami. We remember a couple big moments against them. So who knows? And Mickey Rose back as well. So he's having a very good year for the Dodgers, actually. So over 3 WAR play already. So definitely, obviously in a diminished role than what he used to be here in Miami. But cool to see a lot of former Marlins. And should be a fun series, honestly. Now, towards the end of the year, Miami trying to play some spoiler here to help out Luis Ariz, Tanner Scott, and all the former Miami Marlins that are on the Padres now.
All right. So follow Kevin for the coverage tonight. He's going to be back there on Thursday, I'm fairly sure, to cover as well. So thanks a lot, Kevin, for stopping by. We'll check in with you throughout the night and stuff like that. I have not been thinking about Miggy Rowe. They may have done him and Isaac Azu. They may have done a quick interview with Miggy Rowe today before the game. I'm not sure if they got that done or not. But wow. Yeah, Sean, you were smiling when he brought that up. What a plot twist that Miggy Rowe is not only playing shortstop consistently for the Dodgers, but he's hitting as well at a really high level.
Yeah, I mean I think it's a series we all had circled in the off season, right? Thanks to the interview and to thinking of that Jazz versus Miggy dynamic heading into this series, and that's kind of obviously it's been forgotten since the key player in that was dealt away. But so fans could give Miggy a welcome back. Certainly having a bit of a renaissance for him, and good for him catching fire with a likely World Series contender.
Yeah, not to change the topic, but just to address this, I was following. I think I jinxed Luis Ariz. He had this very long streak of not striking out entering last night's game with the Padres that it did back over a month. And I mentioned it on the site 2 nights ago, or I think just yesterday morning for the first time. And then the very next game he plays last night, he strikes out once. He actually gets a couple hits, but then he has a knee inflammation issue, if I read that correctly, where it's not supposed to be long-term with him, but he was in very serious discomfort last night. Yeah, fingers crossed that he's all right and able to play in the postseason for the Padres. It seems like it was just a minor injury scare right there. What else sticks out to you, Gianmarco, about the Dodgers lineup before we go a little deeper into Ohtani? Who else are you most excited to watch over these next 3 days in their lineup?
It's pretty enjoyable now to watch Freddie Freeman now that we don't have to watch him face the Marlins 20 times a season and we can only watch him 6 times.
Right.
It's interesting to see Tommy Edman. He's been on a tear. He's hit a homer almost every game in the past week.
Yeah.
Of course, Miggy Rowe, good to see. It's going to be interesting to say the least. I really want to see how McCaulkin tonight and especially how Weathers will eventually handle this lineup. There's no holes at all, and it is the best top 3 in baseball since the Yankees don't lead off Soto or Judge. So it's an insane top 3, and it doesn't get any easier after those top 3.
Yeah, they've shuffled the order a little bit. To start the year was Mookie leading off, and then Ohtani, and then Freeman. Mookie missed time due to injury. And then now, since Mookie's come back, Ohtani did so well in that leadoff spot that he has stayed as the leadoff spot, with Mookie now batting second and Freddie batting third right there. And then very quietly, Teoscar Hernandez right behind them has driven in a gazillion runs. He probably leads the team in RBIs this year on a 1-year deal. And of course, like the Dodgers bring in, as if they needed an additional huge bat in their lineup. He's played out pretty perfectly and having one of the better years of his career, at least offensively, right there. The only hole, I guess you could say, is at the very bottom tonight. That is Hunter Fiducia, who is their backup catcher. He just replaced Austin Barnes, who went on the IL. But it's going to be the next 2 days. It's probably going to be Will Smith at catcher right there. So this is not deep enough. It's going to be even more imposing, I would expect, the next couple of days with Will Smith in the lineup for them so far. I wanted to run an idea by you, Sean, from an article that I put out today on Fish on First about how Ohtani in this current state, is he really all that different than Giancarlo Stanton during his MVP season 7 years before? Now, the stolen bases and the balance between home runs and steals are what grabs everybody's attention. He has had more combined. Well, he's the only one to reach both of those home run and stolen base marks in the same season. He's on the cusp of 50-50. That being said, if you look at everything else, it lines up really evenly, not in terms of just production, but in terms of style of play. Like these guys, top of the scale in terms of the raw power and the distance of their home runs and just the physical strength that they have. And you look at the slash line, almost identical, hitting in the 280s, OBP in the 370s, slugging in the low 600s. Am I crazy? Or is Ohtani this season close to a carbon copy of Stanton in 2017, just with the added base stealing element to him?
No, I don't think that's crazy. Definitely, this is a level of dominance that you rarely get to see play out during a baseball season. But when I saw that article come out, I was thinking that the scariest thing with Ohtani is that rather than saying that he's Stanton with wheels, we probably got to say he's also Sandy with power and wheels, right? Because there's when he has his full health and powers, he's also the best pitcher on his team and one of the best pitchers in baseball on top of it. So he's just truly a unicorn amongst major leaguers. But yeah, the numbers don't lie there. This is very close to that 2017 from Stanton. But it's just the tip of the iceberg for what Ohtani can do on a baseball field.
And it did just get me thinking about how we're only a few years removed from there being no DH in the National League and how complicated it would be if Ohtani came back, if he'd still signed with the Dodgers, coming off Tommy John, and they're committed for the long term, like how that actually works this season. Like he probably would not have, I don't know, like it would have been, I think we're really fortunate that we're in this situation where somebody as special as him, even in a year where he can't throw, or at least they don't want him throwing in games. People may have seen those reports that he is deep into a throwing progression, and they are still not ruling out the possibility that Ohtani pitches next month in the postseason if an absolute emergency presents itself and if everything goes smoothly for him during his buildup. It's just a blessing that he's still able to have a full-length season, and I do mean full-length. He's going to even have more plate appearances as a DH than Stanton had as a full-time outfielder this year. That's amazing. Like he is near the top of the chart. He's giving them as close to the full value, the full deferred $70 million per year value, even as a one-way player this year. I think that just speaks to how special he is, how lucky we are to witness him, and why there's quite a bit of hype about him visiting, even at a time of year where the Marlins themselves are out of contention, even when he's surrounded on a team by other star players, that he is just that one of one, totally unique player, all things involved. How realistic, Sean Marco, do you think it is that he gets to 50-50 over these next 3 days against a depleted Marlins team?
It is extremely realistic, and there is a very honest chance that it doesn't even take 3 games to happen. It would be really cool to see in just a baseball fan's perspective. It sucks it's against your team, but it is very, very cool to see in a baseball fan's perspective of how impressive of a season he has put together. And he hasn't even touched a mound yet once. He hasn't even come close to touching a mound for them yet. And he has earned his contract and more just this season.
So we have these next 3 days coming up. I did note just a few days ago the Marlins very sneakily have thrown out more attempted base stealers this year than any other team right there. That's just another thing that makes Ohtani exceptional. It's not just the 48 steals, but they've only been caught 4 times. It's insane efficiency, and it's somewhat of a strength versus strength battle right there. Assuming he's going to get on base, I'm certain that he's going to get on base quite a bit in this series. If they are too scared to pitch to him, he's a candidate to draw his fair share of walks in this moment, and he's up to an interesting challenge right here. I think Weathers in particular is good at holding on runners. So that middle game where the Marlins actually have a lefty starter for the first time in a while, they've been going with this all righty rotation for so much of this season due to injuries. So now they have a lefty face the left-handed Ohtani, and they've a guy that holds on runners well. I think my prediction is he'll have to do a lot of the damage tonight. Tonight is going to be his big opportunity to get perhaps one of both, if not more than one of both, in the steals and home run category. It's going to be a tougher test for him in that middle game for however long Weathers is out there. And he's going to be on somewhat of a pitch limit as well. He's not going to pitch a complete game as he continues to get back to full strength and completely stretch out coming off his IL stint. Then that final game of the series, let me just make sure that I have this right. It should be the Edward Cabrera start, who we've already touched on right here. I do want to hear. Go ahead.
Fortunately, it's not Beloso pitching this series for the Marlins.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for Ohtani, but yeah, you can keep going.
I don't think he plays Thursday. If I could just add that, if he's like one away, a home run away. I mean, the Dodgers are home on Friday, so that's kind of my prediction for it. That they would just, why would they blow that opportunity to have him up, have a chance to break in front of a sold out Dodger Stadium against the Rockies, no less. So,
It should be noted that final day of the series is a getaway day because they are, as you mentioned, flying home all the way across the country, and they start a new series on Friday the next day. So it's going to be a Thursday matinee in Miami. I do not think, despite the star power that is on display right here, it's not going to be a full building for that final game of the series. It certainly would not be the typical, not be like the ideal setting for him to reach that milestone. I can see where you're going with that one, particularly if they win the next couple days and they get all that much closer to firmly like locking up their division, which they haven't done yet. This is still very much a spoiler season game series right here, where the Dodgers have not fully clinched the National League West yet. They're still in a very deep battle for the number 1 seed in the National League, even if they do win the division. I think at this moment they're a tick behind the Phillies for having the best record, getting that first round bye as well. The Marlins in this series and in each of their next 2, not to look ahead too much, but against the Braves this weekend and then against the Twins next week, they still have that wrinkle to them. Every single game the Marlins win over the next week and a half are going to make other teams' fan bases extremely upset. So that's the motivation, I guess, to really upset the apple cart for these other teams, and even more so the next couple series. Those are 2 teams that don't even have their postseason spots secure whatsoever to this point in this season. And I wouldn't. It'd be perhaps a little too overly confident of them to rest Ohtani all 3 games, just because it's no guarantee that he's able to compile those numbers over the course of whatever's left of the season. I think this lines up pretty well for them, as Sean alluded to, for him to be right on the cusp of the milestone after the series and then come home, and for them to milk that accomplishment for all it's worth. In related news, because in the spirit of Japanese Heritage Night in Ohtani, people will remember with Ichiro that it was no secret that one of the big reasons why the Marlins signed Ichiro is because they wanted him to be a Marlin when he got his 3,000th major league hit. And you can refresh people, Sean, he did not get that 3,000th hit in Miami for them to properly do all the marketing that they wanted to do. He got it on the road in Colorado, of all places.
Yep, and I was out there for hit 2,999. Had it drove out there, had a time, was off by 1 game. the next day, day game in Colorado, Sunday, that's when he got it. But that was a big thing that whole season, and just the home press contingent. Went to a lot of road games that year, and just big Japanese press contingent following him around, logging the accomplishment when he was chasing Pete Rose for professional hits, and then the 2000 race as well. He did not get to do that in Marlins Park, though. Got to do it before a much bigger crowd than he probably would have.
Right.
Even during the game I was at, and I'd say the whole stadium was cheering him every at bat, so that was cool to see. And I think it'll be similar for Ohtani with everything he does this week.
Absolutely. So quickly, to get into the Marlins side of this equation, they do have to participate in these games. They do have to hit their half of the inning right here. So this is a look at the Marlins lineup for this opener. They just got through with a stretch where they faced 5 straight lefties, which made the lineup, made Skip's decisions a little bit complicated in that he wanted to see more of Kyle Stowers and Griffin Conine, but he didn't want to put them in a position to get embarrassed, and they kept facing lefty after lefty after lefty. So now this is more of a typical lineup that they face against a righty. This is close to, among the guys that are available, this is relatively close to a full strength situation. Over these final couple of weeks, John Marco, is there anybody in particular that on the hitting side that you're paying close attention to and looking for, to see what they can show in terms of what it may impact them in 2025 and beyond?
Since the deadline, I've obviously kept the biggest eye on Norby Stowers, and then now with Conine being called up, I would like to continue. If Otto Lopez can ride his hot stretch till the end of the season, it'd be nice to see. And I really want to see how Jesus Sanchez can keep it up. I know this is, if I'm not mistaken, this is definitely the most that Sanchez has played, and he has continuously played, and he has faced lefties finally, and he has shown great glimpse, and he has also shown incredibly wacky swings and incredibly wacky base running. But definitely the young guys, and of course can never leave out Xavier Edwards.
Sanchez has set career highs in basically every category in terms of the counting stats this year. In terms of the games played, the 17 homers, the 14 stolen bases. I feel like that has gone under the radar. That Sanchez only stole 4 career bases in his first 4 seasons, and now 14 this year alone, and with good efficiency as well. As you alluded to, there's been, for all the glimpses, there have been some negatives canceling it out. He's gotten a lot of those reps against lefties this year and has not taken advantage, hitting 137 against lefties in over 100 plate appearances this year. I think that might be the nail in the coffin in his candidacy to be like a true everyday player. Like moving forward, nice platoon piece that has amazing power, that is still relatively young, but man, this is now really, it's been a trend for most of his career that he just looks completely overmatched against left-handed pitching. But now for these next 3 games, each of these next 3 games, getting a chance against righties right here. So you would expect him to pop off, at least relative to what he was doing the previous few days going on. And I echo what you said on Otto Lopez. Like, he has had his own quietly, well, I wouldn't say quietly, I'd say somewhat perplexingly inconsistent offensive year, where he was one of the best stories of the season in the second half of April, early May. And then he had this very extended stretch where his power completely went away. His run production completely went away. He still stayed in the lineup on most days. Then all of a sudden, the last month and a half or so, he has been right up there with their most consistent hitters, or every single game he's getting on base a couple of times. There have been occasional glimpses of extra base power. He's stealing bases really efficiently. And so overall, you balance it all out, and his offensive production this year is a little bit better than anybody could have imagined, coming as a guy that was DFA'd by his previous team and cut. And when you combine that with the guy that is legitimately very smooth defensively, at least at second base, and has the versatility to play elsewhere, he's put himself in a position where he's almost a lock to be part of the 2025 team. In what particular role? That's a big question. It's just that he now has these really extended stretches where he hits enough to make you think that an everyday role at some position wouldn't be the craziest thing moving forward right here. I've spoken a lot about Norby on these streams. I was telling people to pump the brakes when he got off to the really hot start, that he was one of the luckiest hitters in baseball over a small sample, and that also just a super aggressive hitter in a way that's really easy for pitchers to take advantage of if they want to, recognizing that he swings at almost everything. That's because he can make good contact against a lot of pitches. At this level, he has to be more selective than he was in the minors. Otherwise, it's going to be a struggle for him to get on base. And that strikeout rate, which is right now at 33%, that's just, it's not a palatable number moving forward. So that's a number I'll be looking at, both the K rate and the walk rate with him. You need to close that gap a little bit in order to realistically be projected as a top of the lineup guy moving forward. With all that being said, we will hop into my favorite segment for the fourth to last time during the 2024 regular season, prediction time.
This is prediction time.
I don't want to toot my own horn here, but I'm really good at this.
Let's get to that leaderboard. Our staff, our super subs, our stream guests make series predictions every time that we do these streams. How many games the Marlins are going to win, who is going to be the series MVP, whether it comes from the Marlins or their opposing team. Right here, down the stretch, highly competitive. As we see here, I'm looking up at Sean. He's in third place overall. Daniel Rodriguez in second. One of our other super subs, 10 of spades, BK, a 1-point lead. So it is still very much up for grabs. This is basically the group that is still mathematically alive as we head to these final four groups. But we've had close to 100 different people weigh in, whether they're a super sub, a staffer, or one of our stream guests throughout the year. And this is what it comes down to at the very end. Making these picks, trying to keep it realistic, but also trying to be accurate right here. Got my special backgrounds loaded up. We will first play it's not really a press box report. It's our field level prediction time video from Kevin, from Isaac Azut, and a couple of special guests. Let's hear what they have to say about this 3-game set.
Already Marlins Dodgers 3-game set. I'm going to say that the Marlins will get swept, and obviously the MVP has to be Shohei Ohtani.
Marlins take 2 out of 3. No, the Dodgers take 2 out of 3. Don't get me wrong. MVP, the former shortstop.
I believe that the Marlins are going to shock the world here and take 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers. Edward Cabrera and Ryan Weathers will put up quality starts, and I'm going to go with Otto Lopez for Series MVP.
What do you guys have for breakfast today? The Marlins are going to get swept, and I have to agree with Kevin. Ohtani's going to be the MVP, and he's going to hit the 50 here.
All right, back to you, Eli.
All right. When we cue up the music, we will start with
all right.
Who is your MVP?
Okay, well, the Dodgers have as many Hall of Fame candidates as they do games in this series. So the Dodgers are winning 2 games out of 3. Marlins are sneak 1 in there. And Tommy Edman is my MVP.
Sean Marco, let's hear from you. Go ahead.
The Dodgers will sweep the Marlins, and the MVP will be Marlin killer, Freddie Freeman.
Nice and concise. I wish I could do the same, but people that watch this show know I'm quite long-winded with my picks, and I need to pick up some grounds right here at the last minute if I'm going to win. I had the Dodgers winning the series, no surprise, winning 2 out of 3 in this one. It is hard to sweep a series, and I like what the Marlins have shaping up for the middle game of this series. That's probably the one that they will win right here. For series MVP, and for the hope of my fantasy baseball team, I'm going to go with Jack Flaherty as my series MVP in the series finale. Flaherty's been not quietly, why do I keep saying that? He's been a very good trade deadline pickup, a crucial trade deadline pickup for a Dodgers team that is falling apart in terms of starting rotation depth. I think he keeps it going. What happens in the playoffs, who knows? But this particular assignment against this Marlins team, especially if a series victory is in doubt for that rubber game on Thursday, I think Jack Flaherty steps up and works deep into that game to help the Dodgers secure the third game of the series. FOF Live. Thank you to Sean and Jean Marco, Eli Sussman here. Glad to be joined by Kevin during the show as well. Yeah, we're back for another stream entering the Braves series on Friday. And as I said, we are coming down to the wire here. Just 2 more right after that. And then heading into our postseason and offseason plans. It's coming to an end, coming to a head pretty quickly, pretty suddenly. But, man, it's such a relief because this season has been any word you want to put into it, just a total mess. But it's only 1 year. I like to remind people, just 1 year. Things can go horribly wrong, and there are countless examples of things shifting dramatically one way or another, one to the next, and that's why we keep you covered as closely as possible on Fish on First. So to see the bright spots, to see what went wrong, and making sense of it all. We appreciate everybody's support for what we do over here. Stay tuned to fishonfirst.com for all of our coverage. This series, Ohtani watch, Ryan Weathers watch, Sandy Alcantara updates, minor league stuff as well. Final Marlins homestand right here. We got you covered at FOF. Everybody have a great night and go Fish.
Have a wonderful evening.